Time. Well, I am here with Mr. Chris Paul, and the book is amazing, man. I'm
Thank
not
you.
holding it up, but you already know what your book looks like already, so I ain't got to do that. But I deeply enjoyed it, man.
I'm
So,
glad.
so I got to ask this question: what was it like going back down memory lane in this, man?
Man, to be perfectly honest with you, it was pretty emotional. It was
Really?
it was really emotional. There's a lot of things in this book that I hadn't talked about ever, and some of it I hadn't reflected on in over 20 years. And so it was kind of therapeutic for me, to tell you the truth. It's the first book I've ever written. Obviously, I've written children's books, a couple children's books, but
Yeah.
nothing as personal as this is to me.
Well, of course, man, it's such a personal book. 61 is the title. I can't think of a better title, to be honest with you. You scored 61. Yes, you scored 61 points right after your grandfather passed away. What was he like, man?
Man, he was everything. He was everything. And for me to have children now, I have a 13-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter.
I'm
Uh,
sorry.
yeah, I know, right? No, it's to see the way that they look at my parents, it's very telling in how I used to look at my grandparents, especially my grandfather.
Hmm.
Uh, when you got parents, you just feel like they don't like you almost, especially for me. I grew up, I was at church 4 or 5 days a week. I was at, Bible study Wednesday night. My mom was the choir director. My dad was a deacon. My granddad was a deacon. Me and my brother were ushers or whatnot. So my parents were strict. were
Yeah.
very strict. So a lot of times I went to my grandfather, just for that love and support.
Now I gotta tell you, page 91 for me was like the page of the whole entire book, man. I say that, if I say that again, Chris, it's because I've marked so many pages here. Man, you say this. I feel so fortunate and blessed because honestly, I feel like I have the best family in the world. No, we are not perfect by any means and have our fair share of issues like any other family. However, my family always took care of me with or without basketball. Wow, man.
Yeah.
What was it like being in that family, man?
Man, it's crazy. Some things, never change. And I think that's why I've been able to even stay in this profession for so long, right? Because there's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of weird things that happen when you're in entertainment and when you're in sports. But I think the biggest thing for me that has remained constant is the love of my family, that
Mm,
support system. And it's nothing like it, right? So
yeah,
I'm in, I'm in my 18th season. My mom and dad still live in North Carolina, and they still make more than half of my games every year, right?
still.
Oh yeah. So it's not like they like, oh, he's just playing and whatever, they doing whatever. My parents, they are here. They meet me on the road for games. They come out here all the time, and that's not normal.
Mm. I gotta
But
tell
it's
you,
not normal.
that was not normal at all. I gotta tell you, I did some background work on you, man. And
Hmm.
James Brown is my mentor, man. I
Hmm.
love that guy. And so I reached
Yep.
out to him yesterday and I said, hey, I'm interviewing Chris Paul. What is he like? And he said, you're one of the most well balanced people that he knows of, man. And he just interviewed you, I think, for some piece here.
Yep.
What is it? I'm going to ask this question. Maybe you can answer it though. What's it like being so balanced, man? And I wish I had another way to ask that, but I don't.
It is tough because I feel like I'm a work in progress, and you say balance. I think it's constant work. And I
Mm,
think the better thing to maybe describe me is I'm curious, right? I'm just always curious, no matter what it is. I mean, when I was in college, I minored in Spanish and then I minored in religion, right? But I also majored in communications. So anytime you tell somebody you majored in communications and minored in religion, they be like, oh, you want to be a preacher? No, I did not say that. But but I was just always curious of other religions and always just curious when I find out information. Like I want to know more. I want to know more, and I just want to continue to learn.
By the way, I did the same major. I majored in communication, minor in religion. Man,
Really?
I did. So I went to be a minister. My dad was like, "Why did we pay all that money for communications degree? You could have just gone and done ministry." My,
Right.
like, what are
Right.
we doing on here, man? Okay, I got you. Next last question. Your grandfather taught you empathy. Mr. Happy comes up in the book. I don't want to give away too much of it here,
Yeah.
obviously. How did he teach you empathy by treating Mr. Happy the way that he should have been treated?
It taught me empathy because, like I said, it's crazy to reflect on all this stuff now. I'll be 38 in a couple weeks. And at the time, I was a kid. So when Happy would come up to the service station, as a kid, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah,
If someone comes around acting out of the ordinary, as a kid, you're going to laugh, right? So
right.
me and my brother, we used to laugh. We'd be like, man, what is wrong with him? He is tripping. What is wrong with him? And instead of picking on him or whatnot, my granddad would always, when people would be like, Happy gone, someone gone somewhere. And my grandfather would be like, come over here, Happy. He'd be like, go ahead, work on that or work on this or whatnot. And he was just always at the service station. And to see how my grandfather interacted with him, that was a huge lesson that I learned as a kid, but didn't understand
Yeah.
that it would translate into the rest of your life when you go somewhere and you see someone who is in a different situation maybe than everyone else, to not just point and laugh, to reach out a hand and try to help them if you can.
Well, I got to tell you, when I saw the backdrop, I think the backdrop to the story is working at the gas station, man.
Hmm.
And I would tell any player who's playing against you, they need to read this book because honestly, that will tell them a lot of your tenacity. Because I don't know how you worked at a gas station, man. I literally reading it, I was
Listen,
going, that's a hard job, man.
it gets so hot, and then you get those. Now that I'm thinking about it, then you get some of those like work hours where nobody's coming through, where
Yes.
nobody's coming by. And you're just sitting out there in that sun.
And North Carolina sun. I just want to just
Yeah,
be clear on that.
different.
Last question, man. When you hit send on this book, on what I would call, I'm gonna tell you this, the top 5 books I've read all year, man.
Man.
I mean, and I will say, Stephen A. Smith's book
Hmm.
was number 4, man. And so yours is taking number 4, so his number 5, but don't tell him that though,
All
man.
right, I
But
won't.
but but when you hit send on this book to send it to the editors,
Right.
did you say everything that you wanted to say?
And that's a great question. And I tell you, I done did some interviews and whatnot, and it's so crazy because you just never know what questions you're gonna
Yeah.
get. So when I talk about my curiosity, I'll be like, man, I have no idea what they're gonna ask. So I just tell you that's a great question because um I think so, or I hope so. And what I've learned is that since hitting send, and now when I talk about it and stuff like that, there's emotions change. There's certain things that I continue to feel now that people are getting a chance to read it. And when questions happen, I start to think about it. What was emotional was writing it, but what was even more emotional was doing the audio version. So I did the audio book too.
I hear there's an audio version to it, and that's for the lazy people. Uh, don't tell me like that. I should have said that. But I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
I mean, but reading it though, man, I felt like I was right there with you, man.
And I appreciate that. You know what's crazy is in writing a book, and I'll tell you this, the very first draft that I got, right, and I read it, I didn't love it, right? Because I didn't feel like it sounded like me. So
Oh,
I started back over from scratch and went every page to make sure it sounded like me, right? And
what?
so that's why the book is the way it is. And I tell you in saying that, I'm a consumer too, right? Like I got certain books that I've read, but I've also had a few books that I've listened to the audio version. And so when I did the audio book for this, it was an emotional roller coaster for me because it's one thing to write things, but when you actually say and verbalize things, I
Mm.
started to feel all the emotions all over again from when these different things happen. So
Like
if you
I'm sorry, because I got to tell you here, another big quote from mine, page 33 says this. Hard work is my preferred language, and I try to speak it fluently. That'll preach, man. I mean, literally, I was sitting here going, I think I will steal that one for my next sermon. It's pretty. If you see that one somewhere else, I'm sorry.
I like that one. I like that one.
That'll preach, man. I was
Yeah.
out with James Brown. I said, I enjoyed every bit of this book, man.
Thank you.
And I get a lot of books, and so I think I can say, you don't need me saying it, but man,
I do.
home run, man. This was good.
I really appreciate that coming from you.
And I pray you get traded to. No, I'm joking.
Now to Orlando.
You're not going to Orlando. Thank you for your time, man. I hate being late. I enjoy everything.
Don't worry about it. Thank you so much, too. I really appreciate this.
You got it. It's going to be a good. I'm praying for a bestseller on this one.